So, you want to get into bossing in old school RuneScape, but you're broke as shit and can't afford any of the best in slot gear. Well, I'm here to help. Hello everyone, my name is OxyM17, and this is the Poor Man's Guide to Bossing. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe for more old school content, and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/OxyM17. First released into RuneScape on May 9th, 2005, Barrows is a very simple and very fun way to get your feet wet with bossing and make decent money along the way. To play the minigame, you need to dig into each brother's individual crypt and kill that brother. There's a total of 6. They're each like demi-bosses. They're all pretty simple to fight, and once you do that, you can loot the chest at the very end inside the big crypt tunnel thing, whatever. And potentially get some awesome items, including individual runes for combat, various rare drop table items like crystal keys and dragon med helms, and finally the coveted Barrows equipment, which is actually pretty expensive nowadays. So unlike the last video, there's not going to be a standard and a completionist setup. We're just going to go with one basic setup for it, and it's pretty simple. For our equipped items, we have an adamant full helm, an amulet of power, Ava's accumulator. If you have Ava's attractor, that'll also work. We're taking 50 rune bolts with us. We're taking a staff of fire, a book of balance, full green d'hide, leather gloves, climbing boots, and a full ring of dueling. In the inventory, we're taking a dragon dagger, a rune crossbow, 200 chaos runes, 600 air runes, 2 Barrows teleport tabs, 3 4-dose prayer potions, a spade shovel, and all the rest are going to be swordfish. The grand total for everything here, including the equipment and the inventory, is only going to cost you roughly 125k on the Grand Exchange. If you're an Iron Man, you might have to do a little bit more work to obtain some of these items, but none of them are particularly impossible to get. The stat requirements for Barrows are fairly low for bossing. I would recommend base 60 in melee and magic. I would recommend 61 range so you can wield the rune crossbow, and 43 prayer at least in order to use protect from melee and all the other overhead protection prayers. So now's the fun part. Now we're going to get into a kill. We are going to do 2 kills back to back. I'm going to show you the process of how to do these back to back, and we're going to, I don't know, tally up the loot afterwards. So there's lots of different ways to get to the Barrows minigame. The 3 that I find to be the most effective are the Barrows teleport tab from the RCS spellbook. You can buy these in the Grand Exchange for roughly 2,500 gold apiece. You can teleport to Berg de Rot from the Mauritania Legs 3. Unlimited teleports every single day, so that's a free way to teleport if you've done the Mauritania Hard Diary. Or you can teleport to Shades of Morton from either the Shades of Morton minigame teleport, which is an every 20-minute reset, I think, or you can buy teleport scrolls from the Grand Exchange, or if you're an Iron Man, you can get them from Clue Scrolls. All 3 of those teleport locations will take you very close to the Barrows minigame, with the closest obviously being the teletab, and you can keep the teletab stacked in your inventory. That's what I normally do when I do Barrows, and that's what we're going to do for this guide. Now I have an order I like to kill the Barrows brothers in, and that order is Derek, Carl, Arim, Torag, Guthan, and Varric. If you find one and it's in a crypt, you skip it and go to the next brother. So for example, if we kill Derek and Carl, but Arim is in the crypt tunnel thing down below, we're going to skip Arim entirely and we're going to go right to Torag. You want to kill the 5 brothers that are above ground, and then you want to go underground to kill the last brother. All 6 of the Barrows brothers are wearing equipment unique to each brother. These pieces of equipment are known as Barrows sets. They consist of a head, a body, legs, and a weapon. All these sets have bonuses. Some are totally useless, some can one-shot you. The 2 that I want to highlight are Derek and Varric. The Derek set effect has a 1% increase to damage dealt based on hit points lost. So if you have 99 hit points and you're at 1 hit point, you could potentially hit a 98, which can one-shot most players unless you're max doing PKing, whatever. Derek himself has 100 hit points. So the more you damage him, the more likely he's going to be to hit you for extremely high numbers. And if you're going in with mid-level average stats, Derek will kill you in one shot without thinking twice, you know. Especially if you're not paying attention to your prayer. Always keep your eye on your prayer when fighting Derek. Varric His set bonus gives a 25% chance to negate all armor and negate all prayer. So Varric can hit through your prayer. That's why I always suggest you go kill Varric last, because ideally by the time you've fought 4 or 5 Barrows brothers, you should be out of prayer points. And you don't have to worry about wasting money on prayer potion doses to fight a demi-boss who's going to hit through your prayer anyway. When you are inside a Barrows Brothers crypt, or you are inside the crypt tunnels below everything, your prayer will drain by 10 points every 16 seconds. So you need to keep an eye on that. If you're using RuneLight, it will show you a timer for your prayer points. If you're using the vanilla client, you have to keep an eye on your prayer points the entire time. If you start to get low, make sure you just take a sip of prayer potions. Some brothers, it's okay to not use prayer and forget. I forget with Guthan all the time and end up tanking for the last probably 1/4 to 1/2 of the fight. If you do that with a brother like Derek, you will die. Be mindful of the prayer drain and be wise with how you're using prayer points. Talking about using prayer potions wisely brings me to my next point, which is bring enough food and prayer potions for your level and bring more than you need. So I am not going to use 4 4-dose prayer potions every time I go to Barrows. I'm going to bring more than I need just in case, and you should do the same, because dying at Barrows sucks. It's super inconvenient to get back to. Okay, it's not a safe minigame, so when you die, all your stuff drops on the ground. You don't want to do that. God, I've been stressing prayer a ton in this guide. Another thing you want to keep an eye on is your HP. So particularly when you're fighting Varric, you want to keep your HP above his max hit, which I believe is in the high 20s. Keep your HP above 30. Looting the Barrows chest actually has some interesting math that goes into it. Every time you open the chest, you have 1 chance of rolling a unique, and every time you kill a brother, you gain a chance of rolling a unique, totaling to 7 chances to roll on the unique drop table. This, in combination with your reward potential, which is the sum of all the combat levels of monsters killed, including the brothers themselves and the monsters found beneath the crypt, the skeletons and the bloodworms and things like that, that's going to basically determine what you're going to get from each chest, or rather, what you can potentially get from each chest. If you'd like more detail on the math behind looting the Barrows chest, I've linked the wiki article to the reward mechanics down below in the description. Finally, I want to talk about the importance of the Moritania Hard Diary. So when you complete the Hard Diary, you get 50% more runes from Barrows chests. Now, for some things like mind runes, it doesn't really matter because, you know, whoop-de-doo, I got 900 mind runes. But when you get that 50% bonus for death runes or blood runes, that money stacks up quickly. It makes a huge difference. You'll see in the chest I'm about to open here, I get a pretty solid reward. Most of that comes from the Moritania Hard Diary. It's definitely worth the investment if you haven't done it already. Alright, so now I'm going to take you through and actually narrate step by step how I do this. Yeah, so we're going to click our Barrows teleport here. We're going to go back out, equip our Staff of Fire, run on down, because of course we always start with Derek. I have nicknames for all the brothers because I love this minigame. We'll start with good old Derek over here. Always be protecting from melee with Derek. Like I explained, his set effect can be very, very dangerous. I have died to Derek before just because I'm dumb and wasn't paying attention to my prayer. I actually could have died in the last run because I wasn't paying attention to my prayer, and Derek could have hit me for super high and killed me, and that would have been really embarrassing to make a YouTube video out of, so I'm glad I didn't die. So Fire Strike, as you can see, decently effective against the brothers. It's not as fast as Ancients or the Trident of the Swamp or the Trident of the Seas. It's not even as effective as like Ivan Blast, which is generally considered to be like the baseline of what you should use at Barrows to make things, you know, remain pretty efficient. But it gets the job done. You know, we looted the chest last time without any issues, mainly because we got lucky and didn't screw up our prayers. But as you can see, my prayer points are draining pretty quickly in this one crypt. Normally when I do it with my own best in slot gear, which isn't best in slot by any means, it's just the best I can afford, I only get to about 56 prayer points. Now we're down to 21. So be very conscious of what your prayer looks like, especially when fighting Derek, because he will one-shot you. Now we're going down here to, I believe it's pronounced like Carol, maybe? I don't know. I call him Carl, and I really want his leather top, and it has evaded me so dearly. So, if you notice I'm using magic against a range opponent, that doesn't make sense based on the combat triangle, so I should be using melee. However, Carl actually has one magic level, so his magic level is 1. All NPCs in RuneScape, their defense for range and mage are based off of their range and mage level. So while it would make sense to attack Carl with melee, because that should be his weakness, since his magic level is 1, he still takes as much damage as the other 4 melee brothers with magic. The only one I don't use magic on is Arim, because his range defense, or his range level rather, is 1, and you're going to see that when we go to the next crypt. Carl can hit you pretty hard, so just be wary. You know, the bolts do cut through D-hide pretty quickly, so unless you're coming in full melee gear, don't sleep on Carl. Just make sure your prayer points are up and you don't run out. You can tank some of the brothers depending on your stats. Normally, I like to try to tank Guthun and Varric in the same go. Occasionally, Arim, if I have like enough HP, but normally just those two. Alright, so we have Arim in the crypt here. Perfect. So we skip Arim and we go right to Torag, which is next. And this is just to keep your prayer points up. You always want to do Guthun, then Varric towards the end, just because, as I said, you're more likely to tank Guthun than you are Torag. Even though his set bonus is pretty terrible, I think it like, oh god, it like drains your agility or something. It's not great. It's not even that useful. I can see maybe one purpose, and it's for PKing in the Rev Caves. Even then, why don't you just use Ice Barrage instead of draining their agility so they can't escape south? Anyways, Torag will still hit you pretty hard, even though his set effect is not super powerful. He can still hit in the 20s. So just be really mindful of that. My HP is 83, so I have a little bit of a higher level, so I can tank things a little bit more, because the unfortunate part about making this series is that while I don't have a ton of money, and I'm more than happy to do this on like the most budget setup possible, my stats are still relatively high. You know, I've talked about my stats before in the last video, but I'm fluttering, you know, at low 80s, high 70s for all the combats except for prayer. Speaking of prayer, perfect. So I'm fluttering at like a higher combat level. My combat level is actually 100 exactly. So you're going to get a little bit of a different result. That's why I'm taking, or rather I suggest, take more than you need. So we're not going to need 17 swordfish to finish this. But if you have lower hit points, let's say your hit points are only, you know, 61 because you have base 60 in all the combat stats, or, you know, 62, something like that. You might need more for tanking and things like that. You may need more than 4 prayer potions if your prayer is at 43 exactly. Which, speaking of prayer, our prayer has dropped to 0. We're not going to use more prayer potions because, as I've mentioned with Varric's set effect, he can hit through prayers anyway. He can hit through prayers and armor at a pretty decent rate. I think it's like 25%. Keep an eye on your hit points. Make sure it's above his max hit, which is somewhere in the high 20s. So keep your hit points above like 30 or 35. Even if it means you have to eat after every tick or so. You cannot save spot the brothers in the crypt rooms like this. You cannot do it. So if I were to run over here and try to save spot Varric, like so, normally this is a pretty viable save spot for most monsters, but you can't do that in Barrows. It'll automatically run your character over because you cannot strike over these things. You also cannot use the actual sarcophagus to stop it either. So you just have to sit here and, you know, take it from all the brothers. Particularly Varric is going to be the one that drains your food pretty often. I have not found that the monsters inside the crypt, the skeletons and the, you know, crypt rats and the blood-sucking leech things, they don't do a ton of damage to you, but if you're not careful and you just get bad RNG and the skeletons roll high hits on you, they can stack up. So be mindful of that as well. But once Varric is dead, you really don't have any issues as long as you're watching your prayer. We're going to make sure our hit points are still decently high going into the crypt, because again, our equipment does not really allow for, you know, tanking and any sort of tomfoolery. Here we go in the crypts. So the way the crypts work, only one of these 4 doors will be open at a time. So we click on this one, and while I generally like to go down here, I like to see which door is open to know where I need to go. So we need to go to this door down here. So we'll do that. I believe with the Sins of the Father quest, the Darkmire expansion, and the Hallowed Sepulchre that's coming out, like, tomorrow. I'm super excited. I believe they're releasing a Barrows key that'll open any door in the Barrows crypt, if you have one. Also, if you screw up that puzzle, I have the RuneLight plugin, but if you screw up that puzzle, everything will reset and you'll have to find it again. So what we're going to do, because Arim didn't spawn before we got here, is we're going to do what's called force spawn him, like he just did. So you walk over here, that's my phone, awesome. You click open the chest, and then they say, you know, you dare steal from us? Drink a little sip of prayer potion, turn your protect from whatever combat on, keep an eye on that. Make sure you're at the right combat thing. I've also done that a lot before too. I've used magic against Arim and wondering why I'm not landing a hit because I'm an idiot. Again, eye on your prayer points. Make sure you're keeping that protected. There's a lot of people down here right now. That is one thing I like about Barrows. Unlike the giant mole, it's actually pretty well populated. And you'll see people of all different setups come here too. We've seen, like this guy's in full Barrows. We saw that one dude earlier in the last run who was using Ancients and the Trident of the Swamp. So you can come here with pretty much anything. We don't need to pray anymore. Doesn't matter. So we'll just sit here and kill everything. Now, I believe this thing up here, I don't know if that's from the vanilla client or that's from RuneLight. We'll check that right now. We'll type Barrows into our additions. We'll turn that off. So that is not there if you do not have RuneLight. Your rewards potential, however, does show down here. So that rises, that reward potential rises with every kill because the reward potential is based on the cumulative combat levels of the monsters you kill. So the Barrows brothers all have combat levels between 98 and like 115, I think. These skeletons have 77, the bloodworms have 52, crypt traps have 43, etc, etc. So you just stack all that up. That's my phone again. Awesome. I've never been this popular in my entire life. I'm thrilled. So we're going to kill maybe like this skeleton and then that one over there, hopefully. Unless this bloodworm tags us first. Yeah, it is. Cool. Cool. Good talk. We're going to turn the Barrows thing back on because I just enjoy having it there. Again, this is a RuneLight plugin. If you don't use RuneLight, it's fully approved by Jagex. So, you know, the base version of RuneLight is not going to get you in trouble for all its client plugins and things like that. 94% reward potential. Let's see what we get. Literal garbage. Okay, but that funds another Barrows run if you don't have any money, and that's pretty awesome. Go here, we teleport out to Clan Wars with our Ring of Dueling. And then, if you have more teleport tabs in your bank, you could keep going, keep going, keep going. When I do Barrows, I like to do 8 at a time. So I do 8 Barrows runs, which takes up the 8 charges on my Ring of Dueling. And then I'm good to go. Go through the white portal, come right back out. Boom, all our stats are restored. Perfect. Alright, so we're back in Varrock. Don't mind the jute seeds, they're for birdhouse runs. We're back in Varrock, and we've decided that we don't want to do any spells that require mind runes or death runes, and we don't want to keep the bull rack. So we're going to sell all these things off and see how much money we make. We'll insta-sell them and just see here. Same thing with mind runes, insta-sell, death runes. We'll put it for 204, why not? So we have 2,000 in our cash deck right now. Boom, look at that. We made roughly 70k from just 2 Barrows runs. So that money right there will be enough to buy us more 4-dose prayer potions, more swordfish, potentially a better weapon. Let's say you don't have a dragon scimitar. That right there is your D-Sim. One thing I do want to mention, I do have the Mauritania Hard Diary complete, so there are going to be more rewards for me, as opposed to someone who doesn't have the Hard Diary complete. But even without the Hard Diary complete, after a run or two, you'll still probably make decent money if you sell all the runes you get. And there you have it, folks. That is your guide to Barrows on a budget. I hope you guys enjoyed what you've seen here today, and I hope you can go out there with your very limited cash stacks and start doing Barrows and making money and having as much fun as I do playing this minigame that's 15 years old. Happy bossing, everyone. I'll see you next time.